So, hello, guys. Today we have with us Mr. Joe Morrison. He's a sports broadcaster, a commentator, and he also owns a channel called Foreign Friendlies. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, I ask this question to everyone: how did you start with your journey? Where did you get the idea?
My broadcast journey?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a strange one actually, because I used to work in a newsagent shop, which like a news kiosk, you might call it. Excuse me. And a guy used to come in there called George Bailey, Whispering George Bailey, was his nickname, and he was a commentator for the BBC, and he was one of the pioneers of golf on, for Radio 5 Live, BBC Radio 5 Live, which was in its infancy then. And he used to come into my shop because he lived nearby. And just every morning, very early in the morning, 6 a.m., collect his newspapers, collect his cigarettes, and then talk sport for 20, 30 minutes. And he was constantly harassing me and saying, look, you've got a good voice, and you've got good sporting knowledge. You should come and, work on the radio. But it was a long time before I had enough courage, I think is probably the word, Omkar, to do that. It was probably 2 years before I eventually said, okay, what do I do? What's the next step? And the rest, as they say, is history. BBC was the starting point. It was the foundation for everything else that I did.
Yeah, exactly. Even I started when I started my blog site, which turned into a channel. I first started. So the main plan was to discuss football, just like you discuss football with your friends. My friend and I, we talk about the PL, the ISL, La Liga, Champions League. And I thought that if I have so much fun talking to a friend of mine, let's talk with others. So I had a similar plan. So can you tell me?
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So can you tell me what exactly goes on behind the broadcasting? How do you put all this together? I mean, we all know what happens. There's a process and there is a series of lines, but can you explain it in detail, please?
Which part of the process are you referring to?
So how do you have your cameraman on the field so that you make a deal with ESPN? How does it exactly go through?
Right. So a broadcaster buys the rights to a particular league or a particular sports property. They call it properties, sports properties. And that's for a particular period of time. The average is about 3 years. And then what happens is the league itself usually has its own in-country production. So, for example, the Premier League is IMG, La Liga is Media Pro. And then they provide that content, as in the live match content, to whichever is the host broadcaster. So at the moment, it's La Liga is Viacom, Premier League is Star Sports, I think. So they provide that content, and then there's what's called wraparound done locally. So that's where you see a show before and after a game that's got a local feel to it. And the reason they do that is very specific, and it's because of advertising. So that period before kickoff is the opportunity for that broadcaster to generate revenues and to put adverts in before the game, because you're not allowed, 99.9% of contracts, you're not allowed to put advertising in during the match.
Thank God for it. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. So, I mean, you do see sometimes a squeeze, but that'll be contractual as well. What's called a squeeze, where the screen, goes slimmer, and an advert for Hero Honda.
Yeah.
Or whatever comes up at the bottom. And that's kind of how it works. So there's two production units. There's a production unit that is from the league itself, and then there's a production unit which does the shows, the wraparound shows.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the background to it.
Oh, wow. That's really lovely. So now you also commentate games, right?
I actually really, commentating is different. So commentating, and a lot of people confuse the two. I get called a commentator sometimes, and I'm not really traditionally a commentator. I've done a lot of commentaries. I've done, quite a few games, probably, across the 100 mark, maybe a couple of 100 games commentary.
Oh.
But commentators are the most talented people in sports broadcasting. And if there's anyone that's on a show, and I'm talking about a presenter, I'm not talking about a guest, who has never commentated and can't commentate, they are a professional fraud, in my opinion,
It
because
becomes so dull,
it is.
right? Yeah.
Well, it's an important skill set to have because you're talking to pictures. And I notice quite a few presenters that can't talk to pictures, you know. It's not just about me and you talking. If a picture comes up, we have to refer to it. People forget it's called television for a reason, television. The clue is in the title, you know, the clue is in the word, vision. Yeah. And people forget that. So, you know, talking to those visuals is really important. And I started my commentary career doing non-league football, which is like semi-professional football in the northeast of England, and doing a bit of rugby as well, rugby commentary. What else did I do? I did some basketball commentary, some ice hockey commentary was very difficult because the game is so fast.
Yeah.
But football commentary was probably the main thing. And I still do it today, still. And just because I enjoy it. I enjoy doing the commentary. I enjoy testing myself because it's the aspect of broadcasting on God that still gives me the fear. And the greatest thing about live broadcast and live television is the fear. You know, enjoying that fear and embracing fear. I hate pre-record. I hate it. I don't enjoy it. I say no 9 times out of 10 to people who ask me to do pre-record. I love live, you know, live broadcast because you can't get it wrong. You know, you can't get it wrong.
Also, you can say something really wrong and tongue-in-cheek at the wrong moment, which might end you up in trouble. And there's some thrill to it that might, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was having this conversation just today. It's very challenging now because the demand for engagement is connected to polarizing a conversation. Now, I hope you understand what I mean by polarizing a conversation. The greatest polarizers of conversations are people like Donald Trump and Piers Morgan. And there's those nightly political shows that you see in India. They are polarizing of conversations. It's the left and the right.
Totally.
So, but here's the challenge. The challenge is that there's a greater demand now for polarizing a conversation because it generates engagement. But at the same time, if you go a little bit too far in that polarizing of the conversation, we're in a cancel culture, contract cancellation world now. So you go a step too far and your contract's cancelled. You know, so the best at it is probably Piers Morgan, but I haven't seen anyone else of late who is just as spectacular, you know. But you're trying to get the left and right of the conversation.
It's walking a tightrope, isn't it? It's like walking a tightrope.
It is, yeah.
It's
a minefield. It's a demand from employers, you know, from the powers that be, that because everything is data now. It's a demand to generate engagement.
Yeah.
And doing the fabulous in that regard because the data was real time. And one of my criticisms of traditional broadcast is they make the numbers up. These are our viewers, you know. This is how many millions of people are watching us. Okay, so where do you get that from? Oh, market research. Okay, market research. What's your sample size? And the sample size ends up just being a few thousand, you know. And it's kind of, it's set top boxes. It's a piece of technology, a box that they introduce into households that are in agreement. Obviously, they sign a contract, and that measures what the household is watching, and at what time of the day they're watching, and what channels they're watching, etc., etc. But that sample size is so small. I don't think it's effective. So, and there's a bit of what's the word? Massaging of the figures with the platforms such as Google, which is obviously YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of these platforms now, and OTT platforms, the Netflixes of this world, they have real-time data of viewership and what's happening. And, you know, for most of my career, I've never been exposed to that until the last 3 years. And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's humiliating at times because there are times when you do a show.
4 people are watching you. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and the reasons for those people watching you are really weird. You know, you think you know it. Like, for example, you think that because the game's kicking off at 2 a.m. on a Sunday night in India that nobody's watching, and all of a sudden the real-time data is coming in and showing you that there's a big audience, and the show going out at 8 p.m., which you consider as prime time, or 9 p.m. on a Saturday is going to get a huge audience, and it doesn't. It's a much smaller audience, and you wonder why, and it's puzzling. It makes you think. It really makes you think. But I love it. I love that honesty of it. I love someone putting that in my face, that data, and saying, this is good. Most people don't like it, and presenters especially don't like it,
Yeah, because it tells you the truth and you're less in the dark. That's why. Totally.
Yeah, it's a truth drug. It's an absolute truth drug. This is the reality of it,
Yeah.
Don't shy away from it. And people that do shy away from it are professional frauds. And I mean that strongly. They're professional frauds. You are being faced with the prospect of finding out that nobody's watching you. And you're scared.
Yeah. And you're too scared. You're
Why?
putting on your blinders and only focusing on the...
That's a great word. Great word, blinders. And unfortunately, in my industry, the majority do put on the blinders. And it's not just people that are on camera. It's people that are in the decision-making rooms as well, higher up. They put on their blinders because all they've got to convince is a sponsor or an advertiser,
Oh,
so
yeah, that's right.
Massage the numbers, make the numbers up, present them to a sponsor, and get the revenue coming in. So,
wow.
But I like real-time data. That's why I love platforms like YouTube, for example. I absolutely love those platforms because the data's right there. You can't make it up. If 58 people have watched the video, 58 people have watched the video. So, In
India, we have Hotstar. Hotstar is a OTT platform by Reliance, Disney Plus, and even they have like YouTube. They show the number of live viewers, and it's pretty good. Yeah. So also, I think I've heard you talk a lot about Indian football. Where did that come from? Where did that interest come from?
I think just broadcasting to India for so long and broadcasting about India. I mean, I started following Indian football pretty much from the beginning when I arrived in the Middle East. So that was about 2005, 2006.
What?
So yeah, I've kind of been following Indian football since about 2005, 2006. The Bob Houghton era was kind of when I started, when it was the old I-League. So that's kind of where it began. And obviously, we did the Champions League to India, actually live in India. So it just kind of, and I enjoy it. I love the, I'm not an expert, but I do follow it. And, I try and watch as many games as I can. And if I can't watch games, I watch highlights, because a lot of the guys are friends. A lot of the friends of mine, the ones who play in the national team squad,
Wow.
Some of them very close friends. So.
Yeah. Also, I feel that Indian football, at least, I mean, you as an outsider could tell us better, but Indian football fans have many niches. You once said that there are some fans who only watch the World Cup, like my father. He only watches the World Cup, supports Brazil. That's it. Then there are people who just watch the Champions League. There are people who are inspired by players like Messi, Ronaldo. They only watch their teams. Some people are fans of international teams, but don't want to watch the Indian football because, like you said, they're too scared of the reality, like the broadcasters themselves. So I just feel that if we can tap into all these niches and build up to one market which is consistent, I think it will be a huge market.
Yeah, and that's the problem, because there are too many kooks, for want of a phrase, out there. There are too many people that think they have the solution, their own solution to the woes, if you like, of Indian football, whether it be domestic level or national level. Yeah. So, and there's not a cohesive strategy. And that's the problem. If you're not pulling all together in the same direction, then you will never get anywhere. And the thing that keeps getting forgotten, and it's so simple to me. It's so simple. It's so easy. I could fix Indian football in 2 years, maybe. It's like they forget the players. The player is central. So just coming back to broadcast and the question that you asked me at the beginning, it still to this day amazes me how many presenters think they are the story, whether it be the Champions League final, the World Cup final. They think that they are the star of the show. No one is tuning in for you. You're irrelevant. I'm irrelevant. They're tuning in to watch Cristiano Ronaldo, Leo Messi, whoever. That's who they're tuning in to watch. And at a broader level, they're tuning in to watch the club, whether it be Liverpool or Manchester United or PSG or Barcelona, Real Madrid. So, so never, ever, ever think for 1 second that you are more important than you are. And that applies both to us in the broadcast world, but it also applies to administrators and decision makers and strategists of Indian football. There's too many people wearing a suit, running around thinking that they are the most important in the development of Indian football over the next 5 years, 10 years, etc. And they're not. The players are. The talent always will be the number one driver of football. Now, to put it in the cricket context, because obviously India's a cricket country, people don't watch cricket in their huge numbers in India and are obsessed by cricket in their huge numbers in India because of what Sachin Tendulkar did in the 80s. They don't do that because there's a new generation that wasn't even born when Sachin Tendulkar made his debut. Now, is he a key part of the legacy of Indian cricket? Yes, of course he is. Is he a key part of the history of Indian cricket? Yes, of course he is. The reason that they tune in their millions today is because of today's stars. It's the player.
Yeah, there was Sachin, but they have Dhoni, they have Kohli, they have other players to look up to constantly. Whereas we had Baichung Bhutia, we had Baichung Bhutia, and then we suddenly had Chhetri, who is now stopping. And the question is, who will replace Chhetri?
Yeah. So what you're trying to do is I grew up and had pictures on my wall of my heroes. There are many people who are watching this who will grow up and already have pictures on their walls of their heroes, whether it be a cricketing hero or a football hero or whatever. So if the talent is brought to the surface, and you cannot tell me, and this is what bugs me all the time, you cannot tell me that in a population of 1.3 billion, is it 1.3 billion?
1.3.
In a population of 1 Messi's, they are. Today, there are 11-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old Leo Messis, as good as, if not better than Leo Messi. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that either nobody's looking for them, in that particular town, in that particular village, in that particular region, or when they are found, there is not a development pathway for them. There's not a route for them to get from just that kid on the street with the talent to elite level. There is no roadmap. So, and you can go on about, yes, but we've got academies and all the rest of it. It doesn't matter. They still slip through the net. So if that player comes along, when that player comes along, or when he's found, all of a sudden, every youngster in the Indian subcontinent has a picture of that Virat Kohli of football on their wall. And that's what'll change the game. That's what'll change the game. Not the suits saying we aim to qualify for the World Cup before 2030. Like, bullshit. You're talking bloody nonsense. Shut the fuck up and just, save your breath and stop wasting our time. Because at the moment, you're not even in the top 10 in Asia. Mm-hmm. So how can you compete at the World Cup if you're not even in the top 10 in Asia? So they keep banging on about the World Cup. Forget it. Forget the World Cup. Not in my lifetime, unless it's moved to a 64-team tournament or something stupid like that, which is possible, by the way. So instead focus on being in the top 10 in Asia. And then once and I'll tell you why that's important, because it's 8 qualifiers. And when the expanded World Cup comes, it'll be 8 plus, is it 8 plus 1 or 8 plus 2? I can't remember. So there'll be a playoff for 9th spot. Yeah. The 9th best team in Asia. So that coming, Rick, and I'm not talking about manipulating the FIFA rankings to get into the top 10 in Asia for 1 year, 2 years, and then you drop out again. I'm talking about year after year after year.
Manipulating? How manipulating the rankings is possible?
Manipulating the rankings, which the AIFF did a couple of years ago by playing certain teams at certain times to get the results that put the seedings, the coefficient, as they call it, the FIFA ranking coefficient in place to bump them up the rankings and to get them up to, did they get to it? Yeah, they did. They got to
97, I think.
What, sorry?
97, if I'm right.
97, yeah, thank you, was their highest slot. So Wales did it before, so I'm not just blaming India, by the way. They're not the only ones who've done it. Wales did it as well. Playing friendlies against certain teams at certain times just to get those ranking points, to get the seedings, etc., etc. So stop. My message would be stop conning people and stop conning yourselves. Do it the honest way, the hard way, put the foundations in place that the next generation will benefit.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Also, I feel that you can critique the IFF openly because since you don't have a fight in this dog, you don't have a dog in this fight. I
like
think
that
you
term.
can. Yeah, yeah, even I love it. That's why I use it. But mainly, I feel that since you have nothing to lose, you can pretty much say anything you want about Indian football, and you won't be scared of your
I
head
do.
going in the chopping board. Yeah, I really like
Yeah, I
that.
mean, look, no, I mean, I'm not out to just constantly criticize, and I don't like that. I see a lot of people involved in Indian football is just constantly everything's been done wrong, constantly everything's been criticized. No, you criticize. It's the same with the Indian Super League, for example. It's like, I would strongly criticize the inception of the Indian Super League in the format at that time. I hate the format. The format's just dumb.
Super
But
League.
anyway, that's another conversation for another day. But the fact of the matter is, you have to give credit where it's due to, in particular, Reliance and the Ambani family for putting their money where their mouth is. You have to give credit to that because no one else has injected that kind of cash now. So that's the positive. The negative is where that money has been deployed has been woefully mismanaged. Bringing in over-the-hill stars that were injured for the whole season. Do you think the fans sit there and go, "Oh, I'm so glad that was it Del Piero that played 20 minutes, or was it Robert Pires? I can't remember. Played 20 minutes.
Del Piero played in India. Yeah, Del Piero.
Yeah, it was Pires or Del Piero. Someone will correct me on this. That played only 20 minutes because they were injured the whole of that first season. I mean, really? Do you think the real football fans don't just sit there and go, "You are conning me"?
Conning. That's exactly the word I thought of. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, and coming back to your original point and your original question about, I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, but you're absolutely right. And I find it very sad. It disappoints me. It disappoints me in a big way that there are not other voices, in particular media and journalism, in Indian football broadcast or newspapers or radio that don't speak out. You are a fraud, by the way, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And the reason they don't speak out is, one day I might go and work for Reliance, or I don't want to jeopardize my chances of getting a job, or I don't want the AIF phoning me up and threatening me. And there's too much people can speak out and speak freely, and everyone, myself included, should be open to scrutiny. But in particular, organisers and strategists of Indian football should be open to scrutiny. And you should have an answer for that. And if you don't have an answer for that, then I want to know why. So, there's a lot of professional frauds out there in my particular field who, grow a pair of balls, speak up and speak out about what's not right in the game. In your opinion, by the way, and your opinion might be different to my opinion, but that's, fine. I don't care. To me, it's like, look, I've had a fabulous career, Omkar, fabulous. 2 World Cups, 2 European Championships, 15 years of Champions League, 10 years of Premier League broadcast. If I don't work again in broadcast, I've done it. I've been there. I've seen it. So it doesn't bother me.
One can see, yeah, totally.
I've got nothing to lose in that particular regard. I don't live in India. I don't have a paymaster there. So, what? I don't care. And anyone that threatens me, by the way, that's like red rag to a bull for me, I love a little dust up, a little fight. You want to go to war? Let's go to war. I've been sued for $5 million in India and won my case. Against the corporation, by the way. Me on my own, with my lawyer, obviously, against the corporation, and won the case. So you can't threaten me. What you think suing me for $10 million is going to have the same effect? Because I speak openly and honestly, and I don't have an agenda. I'm not.
Yeah, one of two things
to get the AIFF.
If you, first of all, if you don't lie, I don't think you have to be scared of anything because, well,
correct.
That's the best defense against defamation cases. And the other thing,
if your opinion is coming from a position of openness and honesty and genuine interest for the betterment of the game, then that's fine. I'm not And by the way, sometimes I get it wrong, and I'm happy I got it wrong. I'm happy to say that I got it wrong.
Yeah.
But opinion is opinion.
Yeah, I mean, also when you talk about the freedom of speech, and especially in this regard, I think we can easily see how freedom of speech can allow the stupid people and stupid opinions to come out so that you can bash them easily with the right opinions. I mean,
Yeah, well, just
if AIFF are doing something right, why can't they talk to the people who are criticizing them with good answers? Because they don't have any.
yeah, well, they don't have any, but that's not my beef. That's not the issue for me. The
Oh.
issue for me is I try not to, as much as possible, criticize people for making genuine mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and I make more mistakes than most people. But when you're trying to be evasive, when you're not doing the job for which you're paid to do, and a classic example is a live broadcast of every national team game. It's, there's a media director who's paid a salary, by the way, to be in charge of media for the AIFF. Now, if you're not up to the job, if you can't negotiate in your role, and forgive me, by the way, if it's not the responsibility of the media director, and tell me who it is this responsibility of, and instead of the media director, I'll dig out whoever it is that's the alternative. If you are not able to do your job, you should quit, or you should be fired.
Yeah.
It should be enshrined in the Indian national constitution that live broadcast of the national football team is a right.
Compulsory.
It's not a privilege. It's not an add-on. It's not an ad hoc thing. It's a right. Every young child, it comes back to what we were talking about before with regards to heroes. How do you create a hero if that game that's being played in Bahrain can't be seen by anybody?
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. The national team, there is no advertisement. There is no beautiful posters. The ISL is better advertised, I feel, than the national team. The players don't have even their numbers or names to be on their back. So even I had a bit of a problem. Then I used to open Google on the phone and check the real life screens to correspond the players and who is whom and where whom is playing. But sometimes they don't even have the names written on their back. And it's just, it's shameful. I mean, if you look at the
I would have
national
to.
team.
I don't have the information, the facts to hand. Someone will correct this, but I think for certain competitions, whether it's AFC, FIFA, whatever, names are not allowed on shirts. It's not like the Premier League. So some competitions names have to be on shirts. So for example, the Premier League. But I think at the international level, I think there's actually a stipulation that you can't put names on shirts. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, because World Cup qualifiers generally do have, and friendlies also. I've seen teams, wear names. Not friendlies maybe, but World Cup qualifiers too. There have been names, so I was a bit confused.
I mean, that's one of the issues, and that's one of the issues with regards to the broadcast, live broadcast. World Cup qualifiers is sold as a package by FIFA. So that, a rights holder like a Star Sports or whatever would pick that up. Friendlies are on a match by match basis. So that's where it's being called into question. You've got to go out and do your own deal to broadcast a friendly. And the rules are different for what you can wear on shirts and not wear on shirts, and all the rest.
Oh, I didn't know about this then. Maybe my ignorance came in the way. But again, what I wanted to ask you was, since you have been in this field for so long, and you know the tricks about advertising and all. So where do you think the ISL? They really had a big boom in the start, but I sadly didn't follow through the boom. I joined last year when I had got a little bit of free time. So I joined Mumbai City FC, and joined means I watched their games and analyzed stuff. So I became an active fan last year. But where do you think did they go wrong to not keep it afloat, the hype, or where are they going wrong, and how can they improve the small ways? Do you know any?
Sorry, you just broke up there, Omkar. Can you just repeat that question?
Yeah. Do you have any ideas on how the national team, first of all, the national team's advertisement can be improved, and the ISL's advertisement can be improved? How it can be made to look a little bit better, although it's not too bad. I mean, there's money being put into it, but
yeah, well, look, all of those things do come down to money. When you market at anything, you've got to have a marketing budget. So I think from where the ISL started to where it is today, it's become more about the product on the field today. The product on the field way back when, what are we, 7 seasons of ISL now, or 8 seasons? So what it was originally it was the biggest hype machine on the planet. You know, remember all of those articles, and you
Totally.
might not, but certainly many people will,
Sachin
about
owns this, Kohli owns this team, and yeah, everything.
all of that nonsense. The fourth biggest attendance of stadiums in world football, and they forget to mention that, by the way, we're giving all the tickets away free to schools and stuff like that. Yeah. So, you know, that nonsense. But I understand why and where it came from. You hired IMG, who are a global marketing powerhouse. They're a production powerhouse in certain parts of the world, like the UK and America. But you go and look through the background of IMG. They're primarily a marketing company, and they're primarily a marketing company that built their foundations and built their business on golf and a couple of other American sports. So you're asking them to come along and create a league. Well, they're going to go with a formula for, let's call it an Americanized model formula. Yeah. Now, I understand that IMG are no longer directly involved with the ISL, and you're now seeing that. You're now seeing that it's become more than just a hype train. You know, it's now about the quality of the players on the pitch. It's now not so much about these overpriced and overpaid foreigners. And they say that, well, we needed those overpaid, over-the-hill foreigners at the beginning to generate some interest, you know, to fill the stadiums. Okay. Yeah. But where's the sustainability in that plan?
Exactly.
Because in certain stadiums, they're not full anymore. And I'm not talking about the COVID period. They're not full anymore. So what do? Do you keep paying over the hill, overpaid, over the hill, overpriced players to come in to fill the stadiums? Bearing in mind, like I said earlier, many of the stadiums were populated by free ticket holders, students.
Yeah.
So it wasn't paying ticket holders that were going into those grounds.
And that doesn't tell you the original
to give
interest.
To give you that whole marketing hoopla of like fourth largest attendance for a league in the world was shut up, will you? You know, stop kidding yourselves, man.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about the players? Why don't we talk about the talent and the Chetris and everything of this world and the Gurpreet Singh Sandhus? Why don't we talk about them? Why aren't they the focus? Why aren't they the story? You know?
Yeah. Also, I feel that, football is still in pockets currently, although it's improving a lot. I've seen Mumbai has at least 1 lakh foreign team followers. I'm pretty sure minimum. Lakh is not even close to how much the actual number is. But even if we assume it's 1 lakh, we can't fill an 11,000 capacity stadium, I feel. Even I haven't been to my stadium locality. So I just hope that we can increase the stadium going soon. But I have a theory, and I don't know, you might know if I'm right or wrong. So I wanted to test it out. Could it be that in Europe, football popularized mainly because of the privilege those people had? At least that's what I think, that in India, the people were a lot more, hungry. They were still trying to survive because of, the free. After the independence, we were very hungry. Until the Green Revolution, there was a lot of hunger here. So could it be that now that we have fixed our country, now that people aren't as hungry anymore, we can focus on the sports? Do you think that's a viable theory, or it's a pretty weird thing to ask? Might not know.
No, because if you know your Indian football history, you'll know that
Bengal. I know.
You'll know that in the 50s in particular, Indian football it might not have been ahead of hockey. So I wish God bless him. I wish Novi Kapadia was still with us, because he would be straight on the phone and he would correct me and tell me. But I think it was the number 2 sport in India in the 1950s. And then, the short format game in the World Cup in the mid-80s, World Cup cricket, in the mid-80s, is what changed sport, because it coincided with the emergence of Sachin Tendulkar. But Sachin Tendulkar was the Diego Maradona of his time, So, the stars aligned and then cricket took off. So that's why I'm saying the focus needs to go back to finding the Diego Maradona of the current generation of young talent, and just being obsessed by that, because as soon as that player comes through, I don't care what the capacity of stadium is. The capacity can be 200,000. It'll fill, because football fans cannot be conned. They know when a player is shit and when a player is wonderfully gifted. They know it. So,
Yeah.
like I say, it sounds like I'm having a rant against the marketeer fraternity, which I kind of am. Stop the bullshit. And I'll tell you why. Because there's one thing marketing a product and hyping a product to your audience or to your consumer. There's another thing getting caught up in the hype and convincing yourself.
Oh.
Convincing your fourth most attended league in the world,
Yeah.
like the bullshit. When you say enough bullshit for so long, you start to believe in it yourself, and that's kind of where Indian football's at for us. We're going to be in the next World Cup. Bullshit. We're the fourth most attended league in the world. Bullshit. So let's get rid of the bullshit and start being a bit honest. And then you can start to make progress, because then you know where the problems lie. Then you know what we need to focus on and what to address. And but it's changing. It's changing for the better. The leagues are changing for the better. The talent, finding the talent, is changing for the better. But I still come back to this, Onka, and that is that the powers that be, the fucking suits. They keep saying that India's moving forward, and they keep banging the drum about the progress they're making, and they are making progress. I don't doubt that, and I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning the speed of the progress.
Yeah.
And I keep getting asked this question. I keep giving the same answer, which is, you think because you're going along at 10 miles an hour that you're making progress, but the rest of the world is going along at 10 miles an hour as well. And you are already 10 years, 20 years behind the rest of the world. So you still haven't caught up. You have to be progressing at 20 miles an hour to catch up with the rest of the world. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. I mean, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, they're running forth, and we are just walking at a snail's pace.
Correct.
And I think, one other thing I've noticed was that you were there when Minerva won the Mina Cup. That must be a huge step. I consider it a huge step, to like a pioneering step, kind of. It was a really big step in Indian football, I feel. So, winning in Dubai.
It was. I wish more people kind of tournament, but I wish more people could have been at the Mina Cup. It was the inaugural Mina Cup. Now, I'm going to be honest here. Some of the teams that were in that Mina Cup were what I would call the little rich kids. So, academies that are just there to put little boys and girls through that because their parents have got a lot of money, not because they're talented. Mm-hmm. So there was a real mixed bag of ability. However, the most important aspect of the Mina Cup for me, and this is why I applaud Minerva, and I applaud actually the Reliance Youth Foundation. What is it? RYF. I applaud them as well, because they sent a team to the under-16s. Why they didn't talk about it, I just don't know. But anyway, it's exposure to different football cultures. You can play all of your games in India, and then as soon as you step outside of India, it doesn't matter what the age group, by the way, as soon as you step out of India, you're presented with a different set of problems because teams play in a different way. And you have to work those problems out. You have to find solutions. So those boys that went to the Mina Cup and Minerva, the Reliance youth team in the under-16 category, because Minerva were in the under-12 category, they will have discovered things that they will have not crossed their path. I'm talking about in-game problems. They will have not crossed their path in every other tournament they've played in India. Because, Europe has different styles. There was a team there from Mexico, I think it was. They have a different footballing culture. And when I say footballing culture, I mean, tactically what they do on the field. So, and that exposure is so important. So important.
Yeah.
I don't know why India is obsessed with keeping itself in this little bubble
corner.
From a football perspective.
Yeah, totally. Because, I mean, there are attitudes in playing football. Japan is totally respectful with this. German, also, they want to attack. Argentinian football can win at all costs. South American, they can win at any cost. Some countries are respectful. Some, play possession-based football. So they use their small size to their advantage. There are so many variables, and only exposure can solve those problems, right? And that's what we're lacking now.
So, what Minerva did I watched them. They totally dominated the final. The team they played against was a mixed bag. Some very talented players in amongst them. Some players which I thought were a little bit weaker. But as a unit, as an entire team, I thought Minerva were better. I didn't see the Reliance under 16 semi-final. I didn't see that, so I can't comment on that. And I'm a little bit annoyed about that, because if I'd known they were there, I would have gone and watched them. I would have gone and supported them and given them, you know, my support, because it's about the talent. It's not the fact of, I'm not one of these that gets caught up in the fact that it's Reliance, you know, like the big bad wolf of Reliance. I don't care. It's like, to me, it's the talent.
It's a team,
who on that field during that tournament has come out of it with a better understanding of the game when it's been played abroad, you know, when it's been played in a foreign land. There are lots of different things. The weather is different, for example, the temperatures. It was a warm night. Now you might say that, well, it's warm in many parts of India, but everything is different. They were on a flight. They were not staying in their own accommodation that they're used to in India. These are the things as a professional footballer that you have to go and do. I mean, if you go and play in the far east of the European UEFA territory, okay, it's from the UK. I've done this, by the way. With Newcastle United, I went and played in Ukraine. It was, actually, no, I'll tell you what the furthest one was, Israel. We went and played a Champions League game in Israel, and it was 5.5 hours, I think it was, that trip. So players have to fly 5.5 hours, get off the plane, train, play the game, go back to the UK, train, get up, go to London to face Arsenal on a Saturday. These are the things, the challenges that you're presented with as an elite professional football player. So it's good that these young boys are exposed to being out of their comfort zone. The food in the hotel was probably a little bit different to what they expected at home, you know? They don't have their parents, their family, their friends around, because they go themselves. So it builds a bit of camaraderie. They have to understand about building team spirit. So all of these things come into play, which are great exposure for these boys. So they're important, they're really important. And it doesn't, and the Minerva Cup is just, you know, like I say, it was an inaugural tournament. There are lots of these. There's a huge one. I can't remember whether it's Sweden or Norway. There's a massive one. It's the Global Academy Leader, Academy Tournament, sorry. Every year. I don't think it's happened for a couple of years. It's the, is it the I want to say Gotham Cup, Gothenburg Cup or something like that. My memory's fading fast. And anyway, it's held every year, and there's thousands, is there thousands? Put it this way, it's certainly hundreds of teams from all over the planet come and play in the various age categories. And it's a fabulous exposure for teams. And every team in Europe every professional team in Europe puts an academy team into one of the categories. So they need this exposure. And it's the same with the national team. The national team needs to be playing teams that they've never played before. And this nonsense, and again, it comes back to someone in the AIFF not doing their job. All of this nonsense about constantly playing Nepal or Bangladesh or Nepal or Sri Lanka, one of the SAF teams, it doesn't help. You need more exposure to South Korea's, to Middle Eastern sides, because they have a different way of playing, to Iran, to, you know, the game against Bahrain, the game against Oman that they played last year. You know, these are all invaluable, absolutely invaluable, and you have to applaud them. And Igor Stimac, and if it was someone involved in the AIFF as well, they, you know, round of setting up these games is so important.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see the quality or the toughness of the other teams improving. That too is a concern as of now. But I hope that it improves.
What way? I don't understand.
I mean, okay, maybe this might sound wrong, but India played, I think, Bahrain and Belarus, I feel, probably. I expected a little bit more from India, you know, like playing Iran or South Korea. But at the same time, if you think about it, we couldn't beat Bahrain and Belarus. So maybe that's where we should stick, right?
No, it's not about sticking there. Again, it's presenting a team of players, because this is the big, we talked about the truth before when it comes to broadcast and the numbers. Here's the truth drug for the national team players. A lot of players walk into that national team squad and end up in the starting 11 that play in the ISL, and they absolutely fly in the ISL. And then when they come to the national team, they struggle. It's very easy. I can be a great player if I'm playing in a team that is absolutely dominant in the Indian Super League. And then you come up against a team like Bahrain, and all of a sudden you don't have a cohesive 11 because you've just got together for the camp. Whereas the team that you play the ISL, you're together all season, so you've built up a bit of chemistry, on-field chemistry. You know who you're playing with. Then all of a sudden you got to go into the national team, and the guy who's alongside you at centre back isn't the same guy that was alongside you in the Indian Super League. So all of these challenges are presented to them, and then on the opposite side, and you're partly correct, on the opposite side, you might play a team that's going to test you defensively and pose you problems defensively. And then you might play another team that doesn't really threaten you because they're not that offensive, they're not that great. But you have also to work out a solution to the problem of breaking them down defensively and scoring goals against. So the point I was going to make was when you play Nepal, for example, lots of times, you've got answers because you know them. You know them offensively, defensively. When you play Bahrain's and it's the first time you played a Bahrain or the first time you played in Iran or you haven't played them for very often, all of a sudden you're presented with problems that you must find solutions to. And I'm saying, when I say you, I mean the coach, I mean the team as a unit, but most importantly, I mean as individuals. They have to work out problems
on the spot. But also, this is where I would like to counter a point that, do you think that, let's say you said we are not used to playing Bahrain, but the next time we play Bahrain, are you sure they'll be like the similar team? Because do you think tactics change with the coach, or do you feel there is a certain kind of DNA which stays throughout the lifetime of the country?
Great question, and the answer is both. There's a DNA in a Bahraini player. They're brought up in a specific football culture, which is different to the football culture of India, which is different to the football culture of Europe, or Germany, England, Argentina, whatever. So they're brought up in a specific. And the other as well is, yes, the coach always changes things, but never a huge amount. And remember, we're talking about Bahrain. This is the team that India got wrong in the AFC Cup back in 2019. I was there at the game, They were a better team than Bahrain, India, going into that game. Tactically, they got it badly wrong. And the deeper that they sat, and I know that many players, I know because I've spoken to them. I went to the hotel and saw them after the game. So I know there are players that in that Bahrain game in the AFC Cup will never make those mistakes again. Know we're too negative. Know that they could have got something out of that game enough to take them through to the knockout stage if they'd been more offensive. They did not provide for majority of that match. I would say almost 80 out of the 90 minutes, maybe it's 85. They did not provide Bahrain with problems. They sat back and soaked up pressure. And I just kept saying to the person that I was there with sitting next to me, I just kept saying, a goal's coming, a goal's coming, a goal's coming. You just the powers of the what is it? Chance. The laws of probability determine that if Bahrain are on the front foot for 90 minutes and having shot after shot and attempt after attempt and attack after attack, at some point they're going to break through. However, if you go on the front foot, best form of defense is attack. You go on the front foot and give them something to worry about. You take some of their players out of the game. I mean, they were on the halfway line. They spent the whole of the second half inside India's half.
Yeah.
Their centre backs were on the centre spot. So there was no threat whatsoever. So the centre backs were involved in the game. The full backs were involved in the threat, in the attack.
Also, another great thing, while you were talking about how we were defending, I noticed the DNA point that in some countries, it's almost like the DNA defending suits them well. Maybe Italy, it suits them. Maybe Uruguay, Argentina, and the other South American teams except Brazil. So defending deep actually suits them. And in India, I don't trust our defense so much. I feel that it's in our DNA to play a little bit like the Spanish, the quick passes, the transitions, maybe defense with content.
And I'm glad you've brought that up because there's a lot of Spanish coaches and Spanish influence.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing I noticed.
And there's nothing wrong with, let's call it the Spanish system. There's nothing wrong with the Spanish system. There's nothing wrong with the English system. The Spanish system is not necessarily any better than the English system. The English system is not better than the Spanish system or the German system or whatever. at the end of the day, whatever system you employ and whatever system the coach employs, the players have to be able to execute it. So it's no good, and this last friendly game I saw of the national team, it's no good passing out the back if the players are not capable of keeping a ball under pressure. You're wasting your time. So people talk to me about the Spanish system. That's one thing I hate about some of the coaches that come into Indian football is you have to adapt to what you have at your disposal. So, you know, if your team is big and strong, then you have to be a little bit more aerial. I don't like aerial football. I hate it. And people accuse me, oh, you just like the English style. No, I don't. I much prefer Pep Guardiola's Man City, and I much prefer the way Spanish football, tiki-taka. I was brought up on that, you know? So it's not about that. It's about what are you trying to achieve, you know? And the thing with the national team is that you cannot, and this is a big mistake that many national team coaches make, and certainly national team coaches that we've had of India, is they try and get the team fit in a fortnight camp before matches. Number one, you can't get any player fit in 2 weeks. You know, it takes us, I used to work with obviously Newcastle United. The fitness and conditioning coach there, a fabulous guy called Paul Winsper, he went on to work with the Nike Institute in Oregon. And he used to always say a player to be fully fit from being unfit took a season. A season.
Wow.
A season. So and what he meant by that was everything, strength and conditioning. So if a player, because they used to get players in, especially young players, who were a little bit on the weak side, you can't put them on the weights machine in the gym for 2 weeks and all of a sudden they are, you know, strong and muscular. It takes a season to develop that muscle. So, you know, the national team, the common mistake that's always made, in my opinion, is that the national team try and get players fit and they try and make the team play at the moment is, tiki-taka, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 5 at the back. Come on, Igor. You know, they try and play a formation which is just not suited to the talent that they have at their disposal.
Makes sense, yeah. Also, I guess the part where you said that, you know, people want you to like Guardiola style. Even I mean, that's the ideal. That's what everyone wants to see. But the thing is, sometimes the beautiful football is not just how you play it, but it's also about how good you're excelling. If you have big players who are good at finishing, maybe the aerial football might look better because they're actually doing something on the pitch instead of, you know, sloppily trying to just losing the ball. They're getting in the aerial balls, they're scoring beautiful headers, they're scoring beautiful free kicks, not free kicks, bicycle kicks. So basically, I think beauty can be found also in the excellence and not necessarily in one particular style only.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as many people know, I'm a Newcastle United fan. And they're on an amazing wave of momentum at the moment. But there's been games where I'm not sure they deserve to win. Or let's say they won ugly. Yeah. And sometimes you have to do that. And why is it important? Because now if you step into Newcastle as a city, the atmosphere, the buzz, the momentum, fans that have tuned out or dialed out or haven't gone to games for a few years under the previous regime are flooding back. The viewership is flooding back. And that's what I want for Indian football. So first and foremost, win. And whilst you've bought, you know, when you win, you've bought yourself a bit of time, a bit of breathing space. And whilst you have that breathing space and that time, that you can nurture and bring through the young kids that play the tiki-taka football that aren't going to make it to the first team for another 5 or 10 years, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. So are you from Tyne Ware by any chance? Are you from Tyne Ware?
Yes.
Oh, so...
Newcastle, which is part of Tyne Ware.
Oh, so again, what do you feel about the Saudi owner? I just, you know, that's a good question to ask a Newcastle fan. I mean, some people are okay with, some people hate the fact that they're excited about the dictator. But at the same time, now, again, this might sound totally wrong, but some people don't care that much. They only care, like, they want to live in their happy world where their team is succeeding. And I don't find anything that wrong with it. Although, I mean, everybody knows that a dictator is hateable, but sometimes people, it just doesn't affect them so much in their life, and so it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, and look, first of all, I will say that it shouldn't be a question that fans have to answer. And I know you're asking me in a capacity as a fan as well as a broadcaster. So as a fan, it's like, what's it got to do with me? You know, it's the ownership of my club. And as long as they invest in my team, and the only caveat I would add is as long as they invest in my team without going into serious debt and borrowing to invest in the team, because that's unsustainable. Look at Manchester United. Look at Barcelona, bloody hell.
Oh my God.
So, you know, as long as they're not doing that, then, you know, why do I have to answer that question? Now, if you're asking it with my broadcaster's hat on and you're asking it from a sports washing point of view, it's like, whoa, wait a second. Let's go through everything, you know? Let's go through everything. If you want to talk about Saudi Arabia in particular, what all the companies they're invested in, should they all be shut down? Should they all be questioned? Should people not have Facebook anymore? You know, because they're invested in Apple and Tesla and all these other things. So it's like, you know, that's one side of it. And the other side of it is you can then pick holes in everything. Roman Abramovich, as we sit, is still the owner of Chelsea Football Club. Yeah. And he's best mates with a guy who has just gone into Ukraine completely unwarranted and butchered. So where do you stand on that? You know, so what I'm saying to you is every single sports organization can be questioned. Every single owner can be questioned. You know, it's like there's no one that's beyond reproach in that particular regard. And what kind of annoys me a little bit is that, number one, football has been singled out and it's become the hot topic with regards to Saudi Arabia. And also that Newcastle United has been singled out. You want to single Newcastle United out? No, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. If you want to put a number of teams on the table and say, right, we need to address an issue, then okay, go ahead. You've got Chinese ownership in Inter Milan. So where do they stand on the Uyghur Muslims? You know, you think that these guys with this kind of money, you know, real power brokers and very, very wealthy guys in China, you think they have no connection whatsoever to the Chinese regime? Do you really?
As an Indian, I understand the China part. I mean, as an Indian, I mean, you might not know, but let me just tell you a fact that China is a really bad neighbor to have. I mean, that's a bad.
Yeah, but that's getting into other geopolitics. I'm talking about sports washing. So, you know, why don't we put the microscope on Inter Milan? For example, I'm just using that as one example. There could be many things. So, you know, it's like no one's beyond reproach. I totally agree with that. But at the same time, make sure you are balanced when it comes to, you know, putting that spotlight on sport and sports ownership.
Also, I feel people are too scared nowadays to say that this thing doesn't matter to them. Like you said, what have the Saudi Arabian crimes got to do with you as a fan of Newcastle Football United FC? Although the things are bad, you might admit. But as a club, I mean, obviously you will only focus on your success as a club, right? But people are too scared to admit that. Nowadays, I just feel that people have to include all kinds of things and, you know, murk football up with the politics. Do you feel so too? That's my last question.
Yeah, you're right, but it's where you draw the line. You know, you can. I just repeat, you can bring into question many clubs, many owners, and I'm not just talking about football, of many sports. So, you know, where do you draw the line? Because, by the way, take Formula One. Nikita Mazepin fired, and people will say like, yeah, you know, Nikita Mazepin fired from the Haas team because of his stance on the war in Russia. Well, the Haas team, its biggest investor is his father, who is best buddies with Putin, and you know, his share in the team is now under question. Right? Okay. So someone might say, on one hand, they're doing the right thing, the Haas team, by distancing themselves for this. But hold on a second.
The Haas team itself
Russia invaded Georgia. Russia invaded Chechnya. Russia, you know, some of the things that they've done supporting a dictator in Syria. So why all of a sudden, you know, is the focus now on? You see what I'm saying? So the point is not this is right and that is wrong, and I'm not taking sides on it. What I'm saying to you is, why is one thing under scrutiny and many other situations are not under scrutiny,
I think I have a theory related to that. I just feel that, I mean, since you're a broadcaster, again, social media might be another thing you know a little about. So, football Twitter is the worst place I've seen on this planet. I mean, they're so bloody toxic. And, they just have to put someone else down. I don't know what the thought process is, but they just have to put someone else down to feel good about themselves. And that's what football Twitter is, I think, for you. Don't you think so? Like Newcastle,
I
they
love
got
it.
a new owner. They became, others were pretty jealous. I mean, where were they when Abramovich?
I
was the
love it.
Russian?
I love Twitter. I love social media. I
What?
love it.
Really?
I love it. I love all of it. It's like taking offense is your problem. It's not Twitter's problem, and it's not the person that threw the stick at you. It's your problem.
Yeah, totally.
Because
No,
at the end of the day, it's only words. And if
Yeah,
you
I heard by
cannot
words.
continue your life because of what someone either verbally said to you or what someone wrote about you, then you're a very weak character, my friend.
Yeah, true. It's
Because
not.
the only way you achieve anything in life is being by able to cut out that noise and ignore the idiots that throw the sticks and to, verbally, you can call me whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. I agree on the point. I believe that social media with Elon Musk coming and all, I want there to be freedom of speech in most of the ways possible, unless it's racial hatred or something. But I want absolute freedom of speech. But I'm just saying that while listening to all that noise, you can also call the people idiots, and I'm just saying those people are mostly idiots. Is what I'm trying to say.
I don't know. I don't know what the scientific measure is for an idiot, but
No, it's personal.
think,
I feel. Yeah.
Put it this way: I think too many people take social media too personally because it's right in front of your face. You think that that's directed. People are emotional. Sometimes you say things in the heat of the moment that you regret afterwards. Sometimes you say things when you're drunk. It's like when you're angry, when you've had a bad day, everything comes into it. So, you might not be a bad person. You've just have got no control over your mouth. So, okay.
Yeah, that makes sense totally.
But you haven't hurt me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I've done nothing to you basically.
You haven't. If you come round to my front door and you try and punch me in the mouth, that's a different matter altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you better be ready because I'll punch you back twice. So that's different. That's physical violence. Telling people to go and go around to someone's door and punch them in the mouth, that's a different matter altogether. But calling someone out and, Joe Morrison, you're an idiot. Joe Morrison, I fucking hate you. Joe Morrison, you're the worst presenter in the world. I don't care. It makes no difference to me.
Did you start out like this, or you learned it over time?
I'll probably learn. To be honest, I learned it over time. I mean, at the beginning, I would react to to someone throwing a stick at me, but I quickly. I think probably when I got to maybe 1,000 or 2,000 followers, then I realized, right, okay.
How many people can you reply to? Yeah.
I'm lucky because 90% of my social media following, I have a fabulous relationship. Probably more, probably 95%. 5%, might hate me. I don't care. It's like, you don't change my world. You don't
matter to me. Yeah, totally. So anyway, guys, we had a lot of fun. So thank you for gracing us with your presence in this interview. We had a lot of fun, learning about broadcasting, Indian football, and I really love to discuss people, and that's what this channel is about. So anyway, thanks a lot.
Good luck with your channel.